Okay then. Hi everybody, I'm George from Switzerland. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to enhance your application's UX. That means design, usability, whatever. Hope I can give you some input on how to improve your application. A disclaimer, I think you've seen that enough times by now. Let's start with the agenda. I'm going to talk about little introduction about PowerBuilder developers and the world. Then about 3 levels of UX improvement, like you can do things like themes. Then you can optimize some details with the least effort, maximized result. And then I'm going to tell you something about 2 different approaches how you can go after your UX design. And then the main part would be the demo. Okay, about me, I might start with how I got into PowerBuilder. Well, first I did an education that's a mix of some business stuff, then some graphics and design, web design and stuff like that, and informatics. And with that, I got somehow slipped into PowerBuilder in a company where they develop it. And so I have some design background, and that might help me to get the design within PowerBuilder a little bit better. I mostly do PowerBuilder. I started with PHP, with the web, but then slipped into PowerBuilder, lots of SQL. I do a lot of usability and design in our software, and I care a lot about software architecture in general. Recent projects have been a time recording module. Most important for now is that included drag and drop calendar. So drag and drop in PowerBuilder, everything told me that's not possible. So I just tried it, made it possible, and then last year I had a presentation about that. If you're interested in that, or has anyone seen that last year? Okay, quite a lot. So if you haven't, the video is still online if you're interested in that. And then I extended that by shift calendar and journal to correct the recorded working time. Right now we're still in the middle of the migration to PowerBuilder 2017. We have some problems there because of our company structure, but right now it's on the go. So we're getting forward there. Okay, what's our company? It's Informaticon in Switzerland. We do business software. Well, we have like stock software, but we do a lot of customer adaptations. So we do massive adaptations until to the business logic for each and every client. And we got around 400 clients by now. So if we want to update PowerBuilder, that's going to take some effort to run through each and every client. We have around 110 employees, around 50 PowerBuilder developers in our company. Okay, so much about that. Let's get started. Well, that's us, PowerBuilder developers, and that's the world. So how does this work? Usually the world doesn't actually like us because of the technology we use, and so they rather want some fancy technology like Java, C# or whatever, web technology, but still they need us because we are so freaking fast. There's a downside. PowerBuilder usually only works on Windows, and it usually looks pretty ugly. Well, what you can do about Windows, that's other presentations. We're trying to do that. So we are fast, that's pretty awesome, and we have some downsides, and we just need to try to kill those downsides, and then we're the best in the world, right? Okay, 3 levels of UX improvement. Level 1 is just the generic optimization. You can take themes, you might take ribbon as it comes out. When I did this presentation, I didn't know it was actually coming. Second level would be a simple manual optimization. So do some manual things, just little things that help a lot. I'm going to go deeper into that. And then level 3 would be the design-driven approach. So you go to your UI with another approach. I'm going into that deeper. Okay, themes. From my point of view, themes are pretty easy to use and look pretty good. We didn't implement them yet because we're not in PowerBuilder 19, but we plan to do that later on. So I've had a deep look into them, and it looks pretty good. But well, there's some minor issues with themes. I'm going into that with the demo. And some parts might just not match the design you are working with, but fortunately you can switch those off. But of course, themes aren't going to solve every of your problems. It's not that like you're switching on themes and then everything looks good. So there's a lot else to do. But first, how to, well, there's some default themes in there, but maybe you want your own theme. That's pretty easy. I'm going to go into that in the code afterwards, but you just copy the theme with the files, make your changes, and then select the new theme in PowerBuilder. But it's not just this JSON file for the themes, it's also 140 icons. You don't want to create 140 icons. That's pretty much of a pain. But fortunately, you can just copy those icons from existing themes. Maybe even combine the different default themes and then create your own set from that. Okay, what do I mean with simple manual optimizations? Well, there's colors. For instance, just get rid of that, how is it called? The gray, the button face, yeah. Everyone uses button face, but button face makes your application automatically look 95. And there's other things about colors. Just use good colors that match together and look good in an application. I'm going into that later. Then the font. Decide for one font and use only that font in the whole application. Alignment. That's pretty important. I see that so often you might have a table and then align the title different to the content. That usually looks pretty ugly. Or alignment of the labels from your input fields. Sometimes they just don't match to each other. So make sure the alignment is correct. If you go through your application and just check those things, that makes a lot. Font size. I actually recommend to use just one font size for everything. That might sound a little bit extreme, but my experience is that everything starts looking better as soon as you just try it. But we're going into that afterwards. Borders and lines. You can do a lot with that. In general, I would say the less borders, the less lines, the better. So as long as you can do it with structure, just structures, it's so good that it's clear, so you don't need the borders and lines anymore. So it gets just more beautiful. And then the arrangement. Like where is your data window located? Is it straight to the edges, or is it do you have some borders between it, and is it logic how you've built it and all of that? So that's optimizations that help a lot to make your design better. Okay, and then there's the different design approaches. I think most PowerBuilder developers go there, take just the environment-driven approach. So you take the environment, which is PowerBuilder, and just build your application as it's the easiest way as PowerBuilder tells you to do. So if you take PowerBuilder until now, you would automatically get the Windows 95, 98 look. If you take themes and ribbon and all of that, you might get a medium 2005 look. So that's a lot better, but you won't get a price for your design. Well, you might not want that. Maybe it's okay to have your application just okay, but not pretty good. But if you want a really good design, you need to take another approach. And I call that the design-driven approach. So you just make a design and then make PowerBuilder look like that, because usually that's possible. Well, there's a thing to that. I think a lot of applications are made with MDI. And what I mean now is the MDI where you have a frame and then windows inside it with where you can move around those windows. Well, I'm not a big fan of that approach. Why not? It usually just never looks beautiful. Then you have a classic menu, and that menu is made for 15-inch screens because it's so small and it pops up. And with modern screens with 24 inches, you have space for to always show your menu. You don't need to hide it within that small bar. And then the multiple tile windows to move around. I just think no one knows to handle those because they're overlapping each other and you still don't get them to be beneath each other. So I think just one window is usually better. So always visible menu and no partial overlapping. Just to visualize that. So I just think this a design that's based on something like that is just easier to use and looking better. Okay, how would you do that design-driven approach? 3 keywords: forget PowerBuilder, be creative, and then make it possible. What does that mean? Just forget about all PowerBuilder limitations and go to designing. So you just need to remember to keep it flat and squarish. So just square objects and flat, no 3D things and all of that. Just keep that in mind, forget about the rest of PowerBuilder and start designing. So be creative. I usually like to start with pen and paper. Then there's some tools. There are some mock-up tools to do design. Actually, PowerPoint is a perfect tool to do mock-ups. It might feel weird when you start, but then when you get into it, you realize it's really fast to do mock-ups. And then if your company is just developers, technical developers, they don't need to be able to do a good design. So it might make sense to ask someone who's good with designing to make the design. Then the designer gives his design to the programmer, and he makes it possible in PowerBuilder. So PowerBuilder has it all to make almost every design work. You might need to build your own framework. Like, has anyone been to Ronnie's presentation about, what was it called? The toolbar, yeah. He has a lot of hints. He had a lot of hints in there, so I recommend you to download that slides if you didn't attend. He has, for example, the hint to do a global function get color that references to a color table, so you can define all your colors you're using in your UI with the design, and then just access them in the data window expression. That's one of these hints. Okay, let's get to the demo. Before I get to the demo, I'd like to show you just how our application looks like from our company. That's when you open it, then we have all our module icons right here. When I, for example, I get into the time recording module, then I get the menu of the module over here, and then there's content with that blue background color, so you know it's input fields. And for example, then there's this drop down, this drag and drop calendar. You can just choose an entry here and then draw it like that. That's all just data windows, no external components. It's all possible. Okay, let's get into it. Well, to show you something I started to create an ugly application. I didn't like to do that, but in the end I got it done. It's no database attached, and it just filled up with dummy data, but it's just to show you how I would improve that. If you want to take a look at the code afterwards, I've put it on GitHub. So you can just go to github.com/informaticon, and then there's not so much in there. So you recognize that PB Elevate 2019, and it's all in there. Okay, let's get started. So that's the ugly application. It's just an MDI frame. I'm going to open one window. It's like that. Button face. I can open an address, and it's all of these frames. And then I can open articles. That's pretty much the same as addresses. And then I did an orders window. So you have orders in there with the drop down to choose the address and with the drop down to choose the article in the detail. And then I've built some reporting over here, just with tabs. I know that wouldn't make sense to use tabs for reporting, but I just wanted to implement tabs somewhere. So just because of the themes, to show you how to work with tabs. Okay. So what's all bad about this application in UI or UX terms? Any suggestions? The gray. Excuse me? 3D lowered, everything 3D lowered, even 3D raised, right here. What I think is the worst are these window frames in the MDI. And then there's all those like borders in between the parts of the window. Why would you need that? And I also don't like the design of that. So it's all in different sizes, all different shaped. So that's all of that. Okay. Well, let's start to improve that. First, I'm going to show you the step one. For step one, I just took the themes, nothing else. It's just themes. So that's still the same, but with themes. And it already looks a little bit better. So we have better colors. We have all of that. And then, for instance, the reporting, those tab pages look pretty cool, but it's still not pretty. It's a little bit better, right? How did I do that theme? I just copied one of, I forgot to open that folder in advance. It's in Program Files, Appian, and then Shared PowerBuilder Theme 190. And then you got those standard themes. I just copied one, then went into that, and I think I copied the blue one, and maybe changed some icons. I don't remember that. And then there's the theme.json, and there's everything. It's pretty long, and there are all these color codes. Do you know the hexadecimal color codes? You don't, or you do? You do, okay. I just like to use the PK color picker for colors. That's a pretty helpful tool. You have the PowerBuilder code here and the hex code there, so it's pretty easy to convert colors or to find colors. It's PK color picker. But there's a bunch of web tools. They just work in the browser, so it's pretty easy to go with that. And then you can just change some colors. I did change some colors to match it to the colors I wanted to use for my design. And that works pretty well. It's just the same color appears like 10 or 20 times. So you're just going through with a search and replace, and that's just be working fine. Just be careful to not replace two colors with the same one, otherwise you're not able to put them apart. Okay, that's the wrong one. There we go. And the orders, just to look at that, we have the buttons with a nice flat look. Okay, so it looks a little bit better, but it's not so much. So let's get to step 2. I think there's a little bit more. There I did all the detail work. So it's still MDI, it's still small windows, but let's have a look. With this one, I just put the data windows out and did all details. So I'm going through that. One thing is full space using. So before, in the previous version, the data windows were just a little bit smaller than they could be. So in this version, I used full space. Then I added this gray header. This is pretty simple to do. Well, I'm just going to open another one of these so I can have it in parallel. Oh, that's step 4. We're at step 2. Okay, like the address list, for instance. If you go there to the header, I just added a background expression. I just added an RGB function. I would recommend to do that with a global function, so you have your default color set. But I would recommend to do it with an expression, because if you don't, the themes are going to override what you put in here. That's an important thing to know about the themes. The themes override every color except it's an expression. As soon as it's an expression, the expression is going to override the themes. So, what I wanted to show you about the themes was you always get that drawing false or true. So with that, you can toggle whether this part, like for instance the data window object text, should be replaced with the themes. In this case, I didn't do anything about the data window text, because in our application we use text fields with borders to make frames, because the rectangle has some issues about that. And if you activate this with the themes, it just removes that border, so it doesn't work anymore. So you can just switch that off, switch that to false, and then it doesn't do anything anymore. And that's the same with like everything. If you don't want your data window headers to be taken over by the themes, you just switch it off. If you just want a single parts different, you can use expressions to override that. Okay, then I rearranged all the, where is it? There it is. I rearranged all the titles and labels and content alignment. So here in the search area, I did it all left aligned. Some people like right aligned labels. I think it doesn't look good, because if you have them left aligned, you have like a line in the left, and it just helps your structure. So you might not, need some lines less. But it means you maybe need some more space between those, so it's clear this label belongs to that and this label belongs to that. And then an important part, even if you don't need it, just make all input fields the same length. So if we go to an address, you don't need the whole length for the zip code, but it just looks better if it still has the same width of the input field. Let's go to other views like the orders. This was right aligned before, so it's left aligned now. I've reordered those input fields, and then the same here. And important part here is the price would be right aligned, because otherwise this way it's easier to read all beneath one another. But when the content is right aligned, you would need to make the title right aligned as well. You can do it. Some applications have it differently, and it still looks okay. But they then have lines here between all those columns in the title bar, and I just think this looks prettier if you don't have lines in there. But then you need to align it the same as the content, so it comes way clearer and it looks more beautiful if it doesn't have lines. Same with the mount and sum. When we're already here, I changed the plus and minus buttons. So the plus is it was up there before somewhere. Now it's just in the same size as these. So if you align all that to the same line, it just looks better. Then we can go to the reporting. And I've added a line here, just to make sure you see that's the title and that's the content. And then did the same thing with the lining. So it's all left aligned, except if it's a number, so it's all right aligned. Except for the address number. You don't want to add address number. You don't want the sum of your address numbers. So it doesn't matter if they're different on the right side. So I prefer to do like those numbers left aligned. Okay, and then I put the buttons on the bottom here. Because there's a tab page, and I wanted to move the tab page at the top. And here in the bottom, they don't mess my design up. So I think that's the best for if you need those buttons. It would be better to have them in a menu, of course, but I didn't go that far with that design. Then some details about input fields in general. I'm just going to show that here. Let's open the order detail. There's some checkboxes. You probably know that, but just in case you don't, we have the auto selection. I would always check that. It makes it a lot easier to use. And I did some going through the code and just checked this checkbox everywhere, because if it's all the same for the user, it's just better than if it's sometimes this way, sometimes that way. Then the empty string is null, of course. I think you all know that. And then the show focus rectangle. That's something that might appear useful. Just in terms of design, it's horrible. So I usually disable that. Okay. Report line background. Then at the reporting, what I optimized here is you get that you have that column. Before it was like single gray boxes with white border in between, and that's an issue with the data window. Because if you just put in that box that the background that rectangle, it would have a white line or a line in the color of the background of the data window just above, and it's not that easy to kill that line if you want to have, or sometimes you might want to have a vertical line through your data window. And if you put in that line in the detail band, it would just have a break of 1 pixel between each line. Well, for the boxes like that, there's a trick. Okay, I can just go there. For the boxes, there's a trick. Reporting, where's that? Article print. You have that rectangle, and then you can add, you make the position like from 0 to the height of your detail band, and then you add a line with the same pen color. It's a rectangle, yeah. Solid line, pen color, window background, yeah, but I overrode this with the expression, just to take the exact color I want, and then take a pen width of 2. If you take 1, it's going to work pretty much, but between the header band and the detail band, you're still going to have a 1 pixel break, and if you take 2, it's going to work. So that's how to get rid of that space in between. If you want to make a line, that's a little more difficult. If it's just a vertical line, I got no perfect solution. I did a solution for the drag and drop calendar. I needed to have it there, but that was pretty laborious. I just changed the background color of the whole data window to black, and then added some white rectangles into it. So the rest that stays on is black, obviously. But that's not something you want to do for just simple reporting. But if you want to do background colors instead of lines, which I think is usually more beautiful anyway, then you can use that trick. Okay. So that's it for step 2. Any questions about that so far?
So for the pen color, the expression you put in, was that a gray or a white?
That's a gray.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same gray as the fill color of the rectangle. Yeah.
Sometimes we'll put vertical lines below the band.
Yeah. They give you a full line. Okay. Yeah. Okay, then, yeah. I think I've tried that, but I might have done something wrong. Okay. Well, I mean, I think with rectangles it doesn't work, right? So, but then you put in the border. Okay. Step 3. In step 3, I finally got rid of these ugly window frames. And I just made them full screen. That's it. So to make them full screen, I just changed the main frame window from MDI to main. If you want to keep it MDI, I just got the hint from Ronnie in the same presentation that I mentioned before, that there's some tricks to remove the frame in the border from the MDI, because normally you've got a gray frame around, which is pretty ugly. But I just learned that there's a trick to do that. You can watch it in his slides. He's got it in there. Well, in our software, we don't use MDI. We have a main window, and then the windows we open, those are pop-up. And we just move them around. In this example, it's a main window with child. In this step, in the step 3, the problem is the resize doesn't work if you resize your window. So you see the close button is gone now. It only works, so it's completely broken now. It's just a demo application for design purpose. So it does the resize once when you open it, but then never again. I'm sure you could solve that, but I just didn't take the time to go into the details. But now you have just full screen and then a menu like that. What did I change there? So I maximized and killed the border of the child windows. So that you still can close them, I just added this X button with the themes. That looks pretty cool. You notice the character I used for the X. It's just it's not a simple X because that would look a little bit weird. That's a multiplication sign from math. You can I just copied it out of the Wikipedia math article and then put it in there. So that's the same one they use in Windows. You can open detail like that. So that's this. I added the resize. So if you open like the orders, it automatically takes the space it has. There's something you might run into if you do that automatically maximized height when we're going to the address detail. Usually you would have this like shared with the list. So you have shared data from the list to the detail. And so you have multiple rows in that data window. And if the detail band isn't high enough, it would show you multiple rows in there. So I just recommend to make the detail band like go forever. And then you don't run into problems. We had such problems when people came up with 4K displays with huge ones, and then they had a problem which we couldn't reproduce because we didn't have that large displays. But if you just make the detail band ridiculously large, then you don't run into it. Okay, so let's just have a look at the reporting as well. So here you have enough space for the whole reporting. And I think the design of the application itself already looks pretty good. The problem you have here is that the menu isn't practical to use. Just always to click in there to open something, you never know where you are and stuff like that. So that's where the step 4 comes into place. Let me just run that. Okay, there's your awesome application logo. It's just a placeholder for whatever your logo would look like. And then I've put the menu over here. In our application, we sell that menu comes from the database. So we have just for each menu entry, it's entry in the database, which gets displayed here with 2 levels. You could design that however you want. In this example, it's just a simple one. Then you can open the address and go to detail. Then I go to the orders, and now I go back to the address, and it knows I'm still in the detail. So it opens my detail, which I have opened. When I close it, it goes back to the list. So that's a bunch of hacks. I'm just gonna show that. Okay, and now before I had a little space between the top of the window and where the tab page starts. In this version, I've removed that because I can go to the very top of the window and it doesn't look weird. Okay, let's have a look at the menu stuff. For the menu, I've created a data window. Just added this title to the header and added some background color in here. It's actually it's generated. How is that generated? I don't remember. Sorry. Okay. I wanted to have, when you go here, you have that logo and the background color and then some space here. I wanted to have some space between the logo and the menu, so I just added a group and put some height for the group header one. Just a simple trick. And then the menu entries are added by just insert row. It's an external data store in this case. So I have a display name, a window name, and a hover. Hover means is the mouse currently above the menu entry or not. And then in the main window, I have a function to initialize the menu. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not here. That's in the open event because it's pretty simple. Just I just created two arrays with the window name and the display name and window name, and just inserted them here. And then in the menu data window, I just added the mouse move event, and then if I'm over some entry, I'm just going to save that. Can you read the code? I probably should make that larger. I forgot to make that before. Design options. No, it's not here. It's where's that again? Or is it here? Script, yeah, there. No, editor font. Okay, better now, right? Okay. I check if there's any row hovered right now. I save that in an instance variable. Then put the hover to 0, so it's not hovered anymore. And then if there's currently a row selected under the mouse position, I hover the new one. Pretty simple. And just to remember, it's the blue color when you hover over it. Okay. So much for creating the menu. And then when you click on it, it needs to be opened. Now, in this case, I wanted to have a little bit control over the windows I have here. It's just a little bit your own design framework or UX framework. So when you click that, I have the window name from my menu data window. So I have that in a variable. Now I want to know if that window is already opened. And for that, I added some instance variables, a window stack. For this example, I've done a window stack with all the windows, like an array with all the windows, and the second array with all the names of the windows. You could also create an object that represents a window and which has like a variable for the name and for the window itself, and maybe some other properties you want to save. And then you need just one array of these objects in here. I think for a bigger application that would be the better approach. But for this example, I think it's enough like that. Okay, so I loop through that. That's a little hack before. I'm going into that hack afterwards, so just let us look into the OF open window. I clicked on the wrong thing. Open window. There we go. First, I loop through the window stack to see if this window is already opened. If it is, I just need to activate that window. If not, I need to open it first. So how do we open a window with a string? If you don't know, you can just call the open function with parameter with the window variable, which is in this case my the next free position in my window stack. and then the string name of the window, and then it will open it if it exists. If it doesn't, it will crash. So you make sure your windows actually exist. And then in any case, I will activate the window. What does this activation do? Oh, that's close. Activate window. Okay. That looks more complex than it actually is. Main thing is just add a new position to my window stack and then show the window. So I'm gonna size that window to the right position. So I have an instance variable for the border in the left and on the top, because in the left there's my menu, and in the top I would recommend to add another menu for the functions within the window, like save or new or those things. I just didn't do that for the example, but I would put just another data window on the top to insert some menu like how's it called again? Well, you could put in a ribbon control in there, or you could make your own menu with a data window. Just draw them with modify. Okay, so I just put the X and Y position and then the width and height. Now, in general, about resize, I usually use the workspace width and workspace height function. I could also use, if I'm in the resize event, this event has some the variables which are passed. You could use that, but the experience is, for one, sometimes they're not accurate for some reason. Workspace width, workspace height, they're always accurate. And the other thing is, now I need to get the width and height outside of the resize event, and I can access those functions everywhere. So that's why I just use them all the time. And then I just subtract the border from the width, so it's fine. What's that construct up there? Well, that's I'm sorry. Okay, that's the thing about the stack. Well, let's say you open a window, then you open another one, the second one, you go back to where you went before, and then you open the third window. When you close the third window, what window would you expect to reappear? The last one you used, yeah. So that's why if you reopen a window that's already open, you need to move that in front of the stack. So if you close the last window, the last one you use gets opened. And that's what this block is about. It just relocates the position of the window to the front of your stack. So it's just some array manipulation, not that complex. It just generates you a bunch of code. Okay, that's the activation of the window. And then the close window. If you close a window, you need to remove it from the window stack. So I just need to rebuild my array, because you can't remove an entry from an existing array. So I just rebuild it without this specific window I don't want to have anymore. And then after that, I reopen the last window I want to show. Okay. Then there's that list and detail thing. So I'm just going to show that again. If I'm going to the address list, now I open that detail. And now I go to the orders, and then I go back to the address. If I close the address detail, I expect the list to appear. But in my window stack, it says you should open the order because that's the window you have opened last. So we need a hack for that. So I've implemented, so I just can show you if I close that, it's the list that's open. And if I close that, then the order comes back. Okay, so in the close, I just check if the window name ends with detail. And if that's the case, I'm looking for a window that has the same name but ends with list, and I'm going to open that. And there's another thing in the window, in the open window for that. Where was it? No, that's a creation. That's a loop. No, it was in the open event. No, not. Where was it? Here. Okay. That's the other thing. If you're in here, you open the address, then go to the detail, then you switch to the order and you switch back to the address. It usually would open the list, but you already have a detail open, so that would confuse your whole system. So you don't want to allow to have multiple details open at the same time. That's why you want to open the detail directly. So that's the hack in here. If the window name ends with list, it just opens the window with the same name but ending with detail. So that depends on having your windows named with something underline detail or underline list. If you don't have it that way, you might just instead of having that just window and string window stack, you might have the object and then have some more options in there. And maybe you put some information in the window itself, especially if your windows have a common heritage. That makes it a lot easier. If you're, for instance, working with PFC, I think then all your windows have a common heritage. You could just have your stack with that and override that to add a variable. This is a detail or this is a list, and the detail of that list is called like that, or so. You could do better options with that than depending on the Windows name. I just built it that way because for the demo I think it was easiest. Okay, questions about the menu? None so far, okay. Open window functionality I've got. Window state and visibility. I think I've covered that. Detail hack, and then there's something else I've added in the version 4. That's something I call fast search. Because normally if you have an application, well, I'm just going to launch the step 2 again. Well, here it's okay if that's drop down or that's drop down. But usually you wouldn't have like 5 articles and 5 addresses, but more like hundreds of these. So a drop down is just not practical. And that's why I recommend to always use something like fast search. That works like that. I just put something in here like Charles or Steve, then enter, put it in, and got it. Same here. Keyboard, and that's not the keyboard, but the docking station. Got it. So that's way easier to use. So how would you build that? Well, in my example, I didn't want to connect that thing with a database because that would make it way harder for you to use it, and I would have to create a database. So I just did it without database. But I think it shows in general how it would work. Most important for that is you build a framework for that. Because if you do it for each part individually, there's a lot of duplicated code. So it would be best to build a framework. To do that, I would recommend to just inherit the data window control object and then build all the functions within that data window control. And then you just need to add that data window control on your window, and you got it all. So I did that in the order window. I didn't create a separate instance of the data window control because I only needed it on one window. But I think you know how to do that, so that shouldn't be a problem. Now I have this data window control DW search. I'm just gonna show the invisibles. It's just somewhere on the window, just a data window with the D-search in it. The D-search is pretty simple. Where is it? There we go. That's in my case, it's an external. In the practical case, I would do it as a SQL data window. But in my case, it just has 2 columns, an ID and the name. It might have like 4 columns, so you can use them as you wish. And then in this data window control, I do some things. So first, let's look at the row focus changed. That's just to select the row. Then we got the search. For the search, I just have a few parameters, and this gets fired in the edit changed event of the data window where you input your data. So you have your edit changed here. You call that dw search.ue search, and you pass some arguments. So what do you need to pass there? Let's go back to the dw search. You need the data window. So the whole data window, which is calling the fast search. Then you give the data window object of that column you're in. Then you have the data column. So the column, usually your search field isn't the same as where you store your data. So if you want to search an address, that search field contains maybe the address number and the name, but not the ID of the address. So that's a different field that you're not going to show. So that's where you pass here just a string of that database field, and then in my case I just did the type. So I did that with any enumerals. So it's just the type address, type article. So do I want to search for addresses or articles? When you're working with a database, it would be a good idea to pass like a SQL there. So you can just replace SQL of the DW search and then put it in like that. Okay, what do I do there? First, I need to position it on the right place. And the positioning is a hard work to do. Because you have your data window, you have your column, and you don't know which X or Y positions that at. But you can find that out. I did the simple version of that. I just, well, the X is easy. The X position is pretty easy. You get the X position of your data window and then the X position of your data window object. Oh, I'm already over time. I just realized that. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I think if you want to know more about that fast search, you can ask me in person, or just look at the code. I think it should pretty much explain itself. You got the link to the code if you want that. So with that, I'm finished anyway.